and welcome to Big Muddy Mayhem. This is the podcast where we talk about true crime and bad behavior in the Midwest.
Each week we'll bring you 2 stories from the heartland that might break your heart, but we hope to entertain you along the way.
I'm Tracey Laricha.
And I'm Janet O'Brien. Hello!
Hello, Janet. How are you?
Good. Is it February already?
It is.
I mean, January was 365 days, right?
We had an entire year of January.
Okay.
It's February, although today was also about a month. And I like your sweater today,
Thank
too.
you.
I love a cable knit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, it's just crummy outside.
Right. Well, finally the ice has melted
Yes.
away, and we had like a few days of like rain that took care of that. And then I know, what was it, like day before yesterday, it was 76,
Yeah,
I think?
well, you got in the 70s. It was nice.
Right. I saw online or on the news that was a record high temperature for that day on the calendar year that was last set in 1890.
Wow.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, here's where we are.
Right, exactly.
Could be cold, could be warm, might snow again this weekend. I mean, honestly, like, we all wake up in the morning not knowing what to expect. We're just here to do our best each day.
Missouri's gonna weather. It's gonna do whatever it wants.
And the world is gonna also
do whatever it wants.
But one thing that you can reliably count on every week is that Big Muddy Mayhem has a story for you.
Yeah, we got
two stories.
Yeah. So I think you start off this week, don't you?
I do go first this week. And this is kind of fun.
Good.
And so I looked into this. This has been on my list kind of for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I had to go and like double check and triple check our spreadsheet to make sure that we hadn't done it yet. But I also want to say that this one, I think, goes out a little bit to Justin.
Oh, hi, Justin.
It wasn't a suggestion that we got from Justin, but it is one that I think they'll enjoy, which is just, it's a little bit literary, it's a little bit British. It is a little bit like skeptical and also just a whole lot of fun.
Oh, good. I can't wait.
All right. So I am going to tell you the story of Pearl Curran.
Okay.
All right.
Not heard of her.
And again, good, because I checked the spreadsheet. I was like, how have we not?
Right.
It's some of them that you're just like, how have we never done this?
Right.
Really? I can just scoop this up? All right. Pearl Lenore Pollard is born in 1883 in Mound City, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Her parents are George and Mary. George worked for the railroad, so they moved around a lot because the nature of his job. He wasn't in the same place all the time. Now, Mary hates this.
Oh.
So, and as a young married couple, and then also as a young married couple with a child, she especially hates this.
Sure.
So by the time that Pearl is about 4 years old, Mary has what they called a nervous breakdown. So Pearl is sent to St. Louis, Missouri to live with her grandma.
Okay.
I mean, I guess, so she's born in Illinois.
Right.
I think they were in Texas and just kind of all kinds of other places.
But
by the time Pearl is 4, Mary has a nervous breakdown. Dad is like, I work for the railroad. I can't also work for my kid.
Right, exactly.
And so, like, off you go to Grandma's in St. Louis. She will continue to kind of be bounced around through most of her formative years after this. Sometimes she's with her parents. Sometimes she's with a relative. At age 13, Pearl also has a nervous breakdown.
Okay.
She drops out of school. She's been bad at school. Like, she really certainly couldn't have anything to do with having no sort of family or parental stability.
Right.
Certainly couldn't have anything to do with, like, all of the bounce arounds. But, yeah, by 13, she drops out of school. She's bad at it. She's popular with her fellow students, but she is not a scholar. And she does really badly in her lessons. Specifically, she's not great at reading and writing.
Ah, okay.
Did you have a subject, Janet, that you were really, really bad at in school?
I was not, strangely enough, I was not very good at English, like in my early grade school. I got better at that. Math only became a problem probably around my junior or senior year in high school, but that's a whole other story on why I was good at math up until a point.
My parents had to hire a whole entire extra tutor to help me pass sophomore year geometry.
Oh, wow. Gotcha.
Not because I was, not trying, but just because it didn't make sense
sink in,
to
right.
my brain. Mm-hmm. And so I had a really good tutor, and I ended up, I'm still not good at math, not gonna lie, but that was the part that started to make sense to me.
Right.
And also geography. I mean, we were watching some kind of a cooking show the other night, and I got Ohio and Pennsylvania right on a map, and Ryder was actually impressed. Because he's like, hey! But this podcast might be helping me with that because I have to learn.
You have to look at the map. You have to see where things are. It's crazy.
The Midwest. So anyway, Pearl here, she's not scholarly, and she is especially reading and writing. Language arts, not her deal. She's also very sensitive about this and sensitive about her looks. So she thinks that she is dull-witted and she thinks that she is ugly. So at this point in time, when she's 13, she drops out of school.
It's a good thing that TikTok was not existing at that time. She would be in the dumps.
Oh, gosh, no.
Oh, God. She would be comparing herself to everyone.
To everyone and everything.
Yeah.
So in the comments section.
Oh, my God. She'd be ruined.
So she drops out of school, and maybe it seems like they try to get her enrolled the next year, but she's like, I'm going to have to be a grade behind, and the shame takes over, and so she just, this is when she's just done with formal education altogether. Okay? So she thinks she's dull-witted. She thinks she's ugly, and she really isn't. I'm going to send you or show you a photo of her.
Okay.
That, this is when she is a little bit older. And she really, she's not, she's not going to be on the cover of a supermodel magazine,
sure.
But there's nothing.
She looks pretty. She
really
fine. Is. She's got her hair is almost what is that style
Gibson
of hair?
girl.
She has Gibson girl look.
And
completely.
That's what everyone is.
Yeah, she looks great.
I know, and so she probably thinks that she is thick-figured because she weighs all of 120,
right,
120 pounds. So anyway, she's really, really self-critical. But also Pearl does have a gift, and that is that she is musically talented.
Ah, okay.
She's got great voice, and she's really good at piano. So at age 14, Pearl and her family finally move all the way to St. Louis. Now, I don't know I can't tell whether George is completely off the railroad or what the deal is. Maybe he's retired?
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, they moved to St. Louis, and that's where they are full-time. And her musical training continues. So much so, eventually, that they're like, wow, she's actually got something.
Of course.
So they send her to Chicago, and she goes to continue her training. She stays with her uncle, who is a preacher, and so she plays the piano in the church.
Nice.
Although she herself is not religious. In fact, there is one story about how she says to her dad, like, hey, is there a God? And he says, oh, my darling, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
So no religious
Not
background,
religious, right.
no religious education for her. She also works odd jobs during the school year to pay for her lessons, and she teaches music back in Missouri on her breaks.
Nice.
Age 24.
Wow.
This is where it kind of changes for her. She meets and marries John Curran. So, 1924, when you meet a man and you get married, like, you give up whatever it is
Right.
that you thought was going to be your single career. He is a state labor commissioner.
Okay.
And then also a land developer. Sources vary. But either way, it looks like whatever it is he's doing, it's a good job. He's making good money. They love one another. It's a good marriage. It's a love match. It's not a I had to
Right.
match. And they're living a comfortable life. Pearl has a really nice house of her own, and she has a housekeeper that helps her, like a full-time live-in housekeeper that takes care of things for her. She and John, they go out on the town, they go to concerts, to plays, all of that. And she has a friend.
Who is the friend?
Her name is Mrs. Emily Hutchings.
Oh, okay.
Because, of course, we have to refer... Right. She has to be Mrs. Someone, right? Well, their husbands are friends through work.
Oh, okay.
And then the two of them, they're like, oh my gosh, actually, I can tolerate you. And
Right.
so they end up hanging out a lot. The four of them go out a lot together. They play cards. They have dinner parties. And Emily and Pearl also go out a lot together. And one night, Emily and Pearl's mother, who is widowed now and living in St. Louis, the three of them go off to another acquaintance's house, and they're going to try out this new thing.
What's the new thing?
Have you ever heard of a Ouija board?
You know, those darn, what are they called again?
The Victorians?
What are they? No, not the Victorians.
Spiritualists.
Yeah, those darn spiritualists.
All right, well, keep in mind that here where we are, Pearl's dad had recently died.
Yeah.
And so she is this woman that has kind of had nervous conditions, hanging out with her mother who has had nervous conditions.
Yeah.
And they're hanging out and like, oh, hey, maybe we have a way to get in touch with your husband/father from the other side.
Right, of course.
Right? They thought that maybe they could reach him. Nothing really comes of it. Like, the planchette kind of goes around and like, maybe there's a word here, maybe it's there, but it's just, it's your third grade slumber party all over again, right? But Emily is kind of into it enough that she decides she's going to get a board of her own. And I don't know why, but for some reason they ultimately decide that this new Ouija board is going to live over at the Currans. I don't know whether maybe her husband disapproved or this is just like more convenient.
Yeah.
You're the one that hosts anyway, like whatever. So Pearl is not a believer, but she's also not afraid of it, and she's also not a skeptic. She's just neutral.
Right.
Nothing much happens until July 8th of 1913. All of a sudden, Pearl and Emily, they're on the Ouija board. Huge, strong communication. Like, the planchette is practically flying out of their hands.
Wow.
And they are finally getting fully formed messages.
Wow.
All right, so Part of the reason it took me so long to write my story is because I do have a few direct quotes
Okay.
from the great beyond.
Of course. What did her father have to say?
Pardon me, listeners. Give me a moment. I need to get into character. Many moons ago I lived. Again I come. Patience Worth, my name. Wait, I would speak with thee. If thou shalt live, then so shall I. I make my bread at thy hearth. Good friends, let us be merry. The time for work is past. Let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log.
Wow.
Let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log.
Oh my God.
Such a good
That
line.
is such a good line.
Right? Good friends, let us be merry. The time for work is past, which is how we feel when we record this podcast, and probably how I hope you all are feeling when you listen to it. But yes, so for the rest of the story, please just let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdoms to the fire log.
Wow.
They continue to question Patience over the weeks ahead, and they learn that she is born either in 1649 or 1694.
Oh.
Hard to say. Ouija board's gonna Ouija board.
Right, exactly. Anybody can come in and out.
Born, quote, across the sea, end quote. She doesn't ever give us a town, but the context clues indicate that it's probably Dorsetshire
Okay.
in England. There really are no fully verifiable histories of anybody by that name in that place. But also, like, how many people came over without any kind of, like, recorded history?
Exactly.
And this is, again, like, years and years and years, decades and decades past. We get a little bit of info on Patience, who is only by this time speaking to Pearl. Emily tries to kind of get in on it. And Patience doesn't want to talk to her. When Emily is on it, she's like, about me, ye would know much. Yesterday is dead. Let thy mind rest as to the past.
Huh.
So, like, blocking your DMs.
I'm only talking to this lady.
Yep, no. I don't know you. You can't sit with us. So Pearl and Patience kind of become besties. Patience will now speak to Pearl no matter who is on the other side of the board, as long as she's only communicating through Pearl. Now, on the other side of the board, initially, once Emily is kind of like kicked off the lunch table, it becomes her husband, Mr. Curran, who records it.
Oh.
Curran, yes. I guess, yeah. So Mr. Curran, once he starts to record things, there are sometimes 500 and 3,000 words per session.
Wow. What?
And Patience just, oh, whoa, hold on. I've got it. Hang on, I've got a voicemail. 500 to 3,000 words per session.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is. If you got into work and got like 500 to 3,000 words per voicemail, how quickly would you jump in front of a bus? Evidently, though, this eventually becomes too much to keep up with through the husband. So Patience, ever helpful, starts to talk with Pearl directly. Just an audio clairvoyant trance. No board. Pearl is just like, oh, hold on, hang on.
She's speaking to me. I don't
It's
need that dang board.
Right. Oh, and whatever Patience is going to say, she hears it and she just repeats it, and somebody else is writing it down.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, sometimes I get like flashes of images or I get flashes of language. And if it's a language I don't understand, Patience will translate for me. Like I'll hear somebody speaking in this foreign language, but then over the top of it, kind of like watching something on streaming where you're like, oh.
Right.
Donde está la biblioteca? And then there's a voice like, where is the library? Right?
Right.
So Patience had lived in a green rolling country and left for the U.S. on a schooner with 3 masts. She is also described in pretty great detail. She's around 30, dark red or mahogany hair, brown eyes. Her eyes are large and deep. She's small and, this is the part that I thought was fun, a mouth firm set as though repressing deep feelings. Raise your hands if you've made that mouth. Pearl does eventually say that Patience claimed to have been killed by Native Americans, but there aren't really any details surrounding that. So now 2 things kind of come to a head. People come to see Pearl and Patience. Sometimes they work on a board because now again, like Patience will just speak to Pearl no matter who's on the other end. But sometimes once they get rid of the board, people will just ask questions. And Pearl, through Patience, will interpret. And Patience, first of all, she won't talk about the future.
Okay.
She's like, absolutely not going to do it. No, no, no. And she's also kind of sassy. In 1915, William Reedy, who's a publisher and a skeptic of a skeptic's journal, he comes, he comes a-knocking and he goes to visit Patience and is like, well, yeah, I'd love to meet with Patience Worth, like super skeptical. And the first thing that the board says is, hello, Mr. Fat and Wide. Like I said, Patience is kind of a bitch. Reedy, after talking with Patience for a little while, eventually does become a true believer. Like, all right, there is something going on here.
Wow.
I don't believe in, like, spiritualism, but I do believe in this. Something is going on here. 1916, and this is the one that kind of threw me for a loop. Patience convinces Pearl and John, you should adopt a baby.
Oh my gosh.
Now, 1916, they got married in 1907. And I want to say she was like 24 maybe when they got married. Oh, you should adopt a baby. So, I mean, it is kind of getting a little bit old for Pearl to have a baby. So they do. They go ahead. They're like, yes, we want a child. I mean, this is a happy married couple.
Right.
So they're like, we're going to adopt a baby. And they make plans to do so. And then one night, Patience stops the session abruptly and is like, you need to go. Something important is happening. The baby that they were going to be adopting is born that very night.
Holy cow.
During the time that they were having their session.
What?
So, I mean...
Wow. How do you even explain that?
There's a whole lot of stuff. It isn't like they're
inducing her this time.
Right. I mean, again, this is 1916. Babies aren't born on a schedule.
No.
So, Patience and Pearl, also in 1916, they branch out a little bit. You're a girl boss. You've got your ghosty girl boss bestie with you. Everybody is kind of coming to watch you two work. The next thing you do, you write a book.
Of course.
A lot of books.
A lot of books.
Eventually, Patience and Pearl will publish 6 novels,
Wow.
several volumes of short stories, and a whole lot of poetry, and also a couple of volumes of what they call aphorisms, which are just like a penny lost is a penny, or a penny found, saved is a penny earned.
Right.
You know, things like Ben Franklin. So also
Yeah.
of the time, just quick-witted little things like from Poor Richard's Almanac, all
Yes.
of that sort of stuff. All right, well, Pearl and Patience, they published their first book in 1917. Now, remember I said that Pearl was not really raised in any kind of religion? Did I say? Maybe I didn't mention that. She wasn't raised in any kind of religion other than the one summer that she was like up with her uncle that was a preacher. 1917, she writes The Sorry Tale, which is written about everything in Palestine in the time of Christ's life.
Wow.
Historians look at it and they're like, everything she describes, all of the, like the vessels, the tools, this, that, and the other, everything is completely historically accurate.
Wow.
Also, the New York Times reviews the book and says, wow, this is really good writing. Like, this is an excellent novel. Remember the part where I said she dropped out of school?
Yes.
At age 13,
Yep.
and that she's basically illiterate?
Yeah.
And she's been all around the Midwest, but she hasn't ever really traveled.
Right. How does she know this stuff?
And she's not religious.
Right.
So it's not like she has a whole lot of biblical knowledge either. Novel number 2, Hope, True Blood. It's a love story based during World War I about a girl who wanted to be a painter,
Okay.
but then gave up her dreams of painting when she finally was able to marry the love of her life, and then he goes away and then he comes back, and there's a whole lot about this, sort of like how Pearl wanted to be a musician
Yeah.
and gave it up.
Yeah.
When
That
she
sounds
got
super
married.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, also, if Patience Worth lived in the 1600s, the hell she know about World War I?
She doesn't.
Also, Pearl, whenever she has people that are watching her for her sessions, she doesn't really go into trances. Like, have you ever watched
Oh, yeah.
a hypnotist and you see how people seem to change behavior? No, nothing like that. She is, by all accounts, eating, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, all through her session.
Oh, wow.
And just like, oh yeah, Patience says this, and somebody else is writing it down.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, there have been several books that were written about this whole phenomenon. The earliest one was written by Casper Yost, Y-O-S-T. He was the editor of the St. Louis Globe-Democrat.
Oh, wow. Nice.
He was like, I'm a newspaper man. I'm here for the facts.
Right.
And so he showed up again as a skeptic, but walked away going like, yes, absolutely.
There's
This
something
is what's
going on.
happening here.
Yeah.
There's a man named, I think Peter, but Mr. Broads, Brauds, who says that he thinks that Pearl was probably bright, but given her mother's nervous conditions and maybe like the controversies within the marriage. Maybe her mom pushed her into music and was like, oh, you're stupid at everything else, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because her mom had wanted to be a singer.
Oh, yeah. No, I can see that.
So, like, you'll be what I never could.
Right.
So, he seems to think that, like, maybe, oh, well, yeah, sure, Pearl had some musical talent. And if you push your kid...
Sure,
and they've got a little bit of aptitude, then they might be really, really good at this
right.
thing. But also, oh, you're no good at this, you're no good at this.
Right, yeah.
You know, maybe they wouldn't learn aptitude that they would otherwise have.
Exactly.
So that's his theory. 1919, Washington University professor thinks that patience might also be part of Pearl's subconscious.
Oh.
So this is when we kind of start to look into the ideas of like, all right, well, you know, like, let's look really into like if childhood trauma can lead to like a multiple personality or to like a split personality.
Right.
We're going to go to 1922.
Okay.
And, you know, I said Patience and Pearl were besties. This is... Now we got bad blood. Also, go Taylor. Go Taylor's boyfriend this weekend.
Woohoo!
Patience and Pearl start to have a little bit of a falling apart.
Okay.
I mean, God, doesn't it suck when you're the person that just like falls apart with your ghosty bestie?
Yeah, that just sucks.
That you've been talking to through the Ouija board for years. 1922, Patience starts to insult and scold Pearl.
Oh no!
It's obvious that Patience thinks that Pearl is not too bright, and so Patience starts to say a bunch of stuff to Pearl that is just like, how can you be so thick? And, you know, like this, that, and the other, which... Boy, if it's just one person, imagine your subconscious telling you how freaking dumb you are. Or just like, you know, what a lot of us wake up with every day. So they grow apart. But there's also a lot that's going on that same year, 1922 Blue. Come on, knock it off. Sorry for all the extra tippy-tappies. All right. So the same year that Patience and Pearl start to kind of split company, Pearl's mom dies.
Oh no.
Remember when all of this started because her dad, who was like her closer parent, had passed away?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, maybe we can get in touch with him.
Right.
Well, Pearl's mom dies. And then a few months later, her husband dies.
Oh no.
And... you know, he was the one that was, like, doing all the transcribing and probably also had the better education.
Yeah.
And also, when John dies, her husband, Pearl is 39 years old.
Oh, wow.
In 1922. And they have their adopted child. And she is 6 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
With her first and only, I think, natural pregnancy.
Wow.
So, also, again, this is 1922, so we're getting out of the end of the spiritualist movement.
Yep.
So it's like, mom is dead, husband is dead, I've got a baby on the way.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out what I'm going to do because it's 1922.
Right.
And public opinion is starting to be like, nah, we've never been able to prove it, so she was probably a fraud all along. So Pearl kind of gets out of mysticism and all of the automatic writing. She and Patience don't write anymore together. She will go on to marry 2 more times.
Wow.
Once to a family friend, and I think when he dies... Then, finally, she did spend the end of her life with her childhood sweetheart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, yeah, like, so she she didn't ever really have a terrible life.
No.
I mean, a lot of scrutiny and a whole lot of like, all right, either you need to be on the public floor or off of it, depending on how things changed. But she does eventually, she gets ill and she dies in a Los Angeles hospital in 1937.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But a good long life. Most historians modern historians that have any kind of interest in this story at all are still looking into this. Like the most recent study that I found was from 2012.
Holy cow.
And I don't know. Again, Janet, why do I keep doing unsolved
I don't know. Because there is
hate and unsolved stories. So we still don't really know. I'm going to ask you first.
Okay.
And then I'm going to tell you what I thought.
Okay. What do I think? So what I think is that, you know, a lot of the spiritualism was, you know, really grasping at straws, but I don't know if she just maybe her and her husband were a good pairing at the whole, like, she says something and he writes it, and maybe the books that she wrote, between her and her husband, she probably does come up with great stories, and the husband probably helped her write the book.
Just tweaks it.
Right, exactly. And so, you know what? She didn't really harm anyone. Maybe she took some people's money, but she...
But the money, though, wasn't ever very much. It was just like, oh, you come and you pay so
Right.
you can watch. I mean, you bought your ticket to the show.
Right, and so,
Like,
you know...
you're going to pay to see Morrissey. There's only a 50-50 chance that he's going to show up. If you're going to pay to see Patience Worth.
Right. But the different books were completely different stories, so, you know, it kind of gave her... People paid attention to what she wrote because of that.
Completely. And that was my thinking on
Yes.
it, is that I understand what they were saying about, like, oh, well, maybe her mother kind of pushed her into this because her mother wanted to be a singer and thought, like, oh, if I can't be famous, my kid can be.
Right.
But her mother never wanted to be an author. And specifically, when you look at Pearl's early years, language wasn't it. Like, I skated by with like a D in geography.
Right.
I'm not going to be a cartographer.
No, you're not.
And if I am, then just know that there's some ghosty bullshit going on there. So I think that maybe it might have been. It's interesting that this woman that was barely literate and not religious all of a sudden had all of this historical and literary knowledge.
Yeah.
And then it did kind of go away after her husband died. Now, granted, she had her hands full.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if she did have a ghosty friend that was just telling her everything,
great.
I could be like, I am so sorry, but I gotta get to Target before it closes, and I need to make the grocery order and figure out what's going on. And also, I've got to work at 6 a.m, and I don't have any clean socks.
Right.
I mean, we all know that. We've all been there. We are all Pearl Curran.
Exactly.
And we are all Patience Worth.
Yes, we are. I mean, again, Evan's a great story, but...
It's an open-ended story.
It's an open-ended story.
Which I don't normally do. But this one has been kind of, like I said, on my list for a little while.
Right.
And I love it. And
I love the line about the tabby.
I know. I'm
That is
going
my
to read
favorite
that
line.
one more time because that was... I didn't write down all of her quotes.
But that quote is amazing.
But that one is so lovely. Hold on. So...
Sorry, we got to hear that line one more time because, come on.
Oops. I'm going through all of the porches, like the bags of body parts under the porch. All right. So, many moons ago I lived. Again I come. Patience Worth my name. Wait, I would speak with thee. If thou shalt live, then so shall I. I make my bread at thy hearth. I love that.
That's a good line.
Good friends, let us be merry. the time for work is past. Let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log.
I don't know what it is with that line, but it's a great line.
I want that on like a tea towel.
Yes!
Or
And with a sleeping orange tabby or a gray tabby on your... Oh. I would do gray tabby because I'm a gray tabby girl.
I'm partial to black cats, as you might know. Even though they're jerks. But yes, let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log. Is one of the prettiest, most just comforting sentences.
You can see it. You can see it.
And don't you just feel cozy when you hear that?
Right.
Oh,
that's a great story.
Well, let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log, but not just yet, because we have a second story to get to.
We do. So, as you are all aware, I am still doing Warren G. Harding. And I really was thinking, oh, this will be the last part. It's going to be great. And oh my gosh, I still can't skip over anything because...
Too much.
There's too much information. It's important information. We all need to learn history. Gosh darn it.
Or else what happens? Would we be condemned to repeat it?
What? Shocking. I was writing part of this earlier, maybe at work, and the girl who was sitting in front of me, I had to stop literally and go, let me read you this part. And I read it to her, and she's like, huh, that doesn't sound familiar at all. So...
Shout out to my friends at my job too that I also throw out like show.
You're like okay.
Hey.
So we're gonna do part 3, and unfortunately, folks, you're still gonna be hearing about this guy next week as well because I can't leave anything out, and that is fine. Because it's still interesting. So,
and if we knew how to get rid of them, we would know how to get rid of them.
Right. Well, okay. Harding was pretty easy to get rid of. So we are going to go with part 3, Warren G. Harding. So where we left off last time is that, excuse me here. Harding made a speech opposing the League, which is the league that was supposed to combine, basically... whatever we have now, where we work with other countries. If one country goes to war, that means we all go to war. And he didn't want to be a part of that. So that's where we left off. Progressives rejoined the Republican Party, and Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy, he was going to run for his 3rd term.
Right.
Now you have to understand that 2 terms became the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, which was approved by Congress not until March of 1947. We were only in 1919. And it prohibits anyone who has been elected president twice from being elected again. Before this, the president was not subjected to term limits at all. Both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson did not run a 3rd term, which established the 2-term tradition, even though it was never a law. But, some people got mad because Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected to run for 3rd and 4th term. So someone decided we should probably do something about that.
Figure out, where is the line?
Where's the line? Yeah, exactly. So when... Franklin D. Roosevelt ran for his 3rd and 4th. That gave rise to concerns about serving unlimited terms. Before Teddy Roosevelt could run, though, he suddenly passed away January 6, 1919.
Oh, right.
So now we have several candidates, including Herbert Hoover and Calvin Coolidge. Warren G. Harding, he really wanted to run for president, but at the same time, he was way more interested in running for the Senate in Ohio because, as we know, he still loves his state. He will do anything for his state. December 17th, 1919, Harding did decide, you know what, I'll try to run for the president, but I'm going to do this low-key. That way I said I did it, and maybe they'll leave me alone, But, yeah, so he makes a low-key announcement, and the leading Republicans were more interested in Harding due to him being part of the old Republican Guard. Harding's campaign manager, who we mentioned in the first part of this, Harry W. Daughtry, he was already...
And he was the one that was like, this guy would be a great president.
Exactly, he looks like a great president.
Said that, he was the one that was just like, this is our boy, let's start grooming him.
Exactly, and, Daughtry, he's already a political fixer, so he establishes Harding for President campaign with a letter writing and showing that he was a very acceptable choice. Harding was barely winning the primary and almost dropped out. But his wife Florence, as we know, was like, "We're not going to give up. Forget that. No, we're still running." Harding ended up going to Boston after his poor results and delivered a speech to help his campaign. America's present need is not heroics, but healing. Not nostrums, but normalcy. Not revolution, but restoration.
I love that.
Not agitation, but adjustment. Not surgery, but serenity. Not the dramatic, but the dispassionate. Not experiment, but equipoise. Not submergence into internationality. Oh, that is such a weird word. But
internationality?
Yes, but sustained in triumphant nationality. And that was his speech that he made on May 14th, 1920. He spoke mostly non-confrontational, so that people really liked that too. He was not confrontational when he spoke. The June 8th, 1920, at the Republican National Convention, they still thought, he still thought he couldn't run with his poor results. But because of the liabilities of the other primary candidates they spoke of, using Harding, he ended up winning the votes. So he ends up winning the primary.
Okay.
Coolidge, as we'll know later, was nominated as the VP for Harding. So we got a Harding-Coolidge ticket happening here.
Silent Cal.
Yep. General election. The paper suggested that Harding was the least qualified candidate. The New York Times said a respectable Ohio politician of the second class. That is supposed to be a bad thing. You are making fun of most of the people voting for you.
Right.
And I'm like, really? That is the line you're going to use? Okay, sure.
But they will.
But they will. The Democratic National Convention thought about running Woodrow Wilson for a third term, but they felt like Woodrow Wilson's health would prohibit it because he was declining in health. They ended up nominating Governor...
Janet,
what?
References only.
They ended up nominating Governor Cox for president for the Democratic ticket and Franklin D. Roosevelt as his running mate. Oh. So we got...
FDR.
FDR as the VP. And we got Coolidge as the other VP. It's just like, all these names except one. Like, I don't really know Cox very well. Cox, now at this point, as I explained, we're already switching. We're already seeing that Republicans are becoming more conservative, even though they have progressives with them. The Democrats are still pretty... They're trying to... They're in the South. They're not great, but they're not bad. So we got our switching happening here, okay?
Okay.
Cox is known as the liberal, and Harding was the conservative. So since Harding was also a newspaper man, he was able to appeal to them as well by running on Return to Normalcy. That was his theme.
Oh.
I know, right?
Oh, it's almost like we're trying to... I'm sorry. I'm not even going to freaking say
Okay, now what did I say? Harding was born on November 2nd, 1865. So what does that? Okay, how old was he? Election day, November 2nd, 1920. So that's 20 plus what we got, 35, 45. So he's 55 years old.
Okay.
Which it's not bad.
Respectable.
Yeah. So election day, November 2nd, 1920. On his birthday, Harding received 60.2% of the popular vote and 404 electoral votes. So he ends up winning.
He's in.
Yes, exactly. And I do actually have a picture of the map, because we're all interested in the map, right? Gotta always look at the election map. So let's see here. We got new. Did I screenshot it? Of course I didn't. Okay, doesn't matter. It's fine. So anyway, he wins. Return to normalcy. World War I, also known as the Great War.
Because, I mean, you can't call it one if you don't think
there's no
that there are going to be any more, right?
So he's running on return to normalcy, because what has happened in the country right now is the war, the Great War, the Spanish flu. This has upended a lot of people's lives.
B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Yeah. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So normalcy to him included deregulation. Deregulation. Words are really failing me today, and it's fine.
Deregulation?
Thank you.
All right. It's okay.
That means to remove or reduce state regulations. He was also wanted to run on civic engagement to help people out. And so that was what his normalcy policy was for. Harding was against the idealism of Wilson and the activism of Roosevelt. He did not like the activism part. When he became president, he was inaugurated on March 4th, 1921. In the inaugural address, he stated, "Our most dangerous tendency is to expect too much from the government and at the same time to do little for it." I hate reading this.
I do too. But it's important for all of you,
it's important
for people to hear this.
Right. He didn't want to appoint anyone until after he returned from his vacation in December. He got inaugurated in March. Oh. Now, he ended up going down to golf in Texas.
Oh, wow.
With his friend Frank Scobie, who ended up becoming the director of the Mint. He also
putting friends in place in positions of power in Texas. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? He also sailed the Panama Canal Zone. By December, he finally returned. He chose Charles Evans Hughes as Secretary of State, who was very pro-League, even though he was not. But he picked him anyway. He chose... this one got me. Andrew W. Mellon. I know you don't know who that is. But remember how I used to work for Bank of New York a long time ago?
Isn't Mellon Carnegie?
Mellon is... Yes.
I do know who that is. Huh? See? Look at me.
So he chose...
Podcast partner pulling that right.
So Andrew W. Mellon, he is the child of those people. And he's also one of the richest persons in the U.S., and he chose him to run the Treasury position.
Well, what do we do with our money?
Yeah.
Give it to people with our hair money. Because they clearly, give it to people that have never had to, worry about money and see what they do with it.
Right. So Mellon, he was a part of the family that also had T. Mellon and Sons and Union Trust Company.
Oh.
He appointed Herbert Hoover Secretary of Commerce.
Who did so much for the poor.
He put Will Hay, the Republican National Convention chairman, as Postmaster General. That was a cabinet post at the time. Harding was still not wanting to join the League, though, like I said. They did end up working, however, with Germany after the end of World War One to reduce the reparations that they needed to pay the U.S. for losing, which eventually became the Dawes Plan, established in 1924. That was after Harding. So that's basically, if you lose, you pay us, but we can bring it down to where at least, you're not totally breaking your country. We already broke your country. Let's not break you even more. Right. Harding urged the disarmament and lower defense costs. He wanted to, because we just got out of this war. He's like, we need to stop with all these ships and stuff. What are we doing? He wanted to improve relations with Latin America. The only thing he was able to do, though, was get the troops withdrawn from Cuba. When he took the office, the U.S. was in a post-war economic decline. April 11th, he called a special session of Congress. He urged for reduction on income taxes that were raised during the wartime, and increase on tariffs, here we go, though, on agricultural goods to protect American farmers, which that kind of makes sense. Like, if you're trying to grow,
paper.
Yeah, well, I know, but this is a time when farmers are growing everything and not just freaking corn and Milo. You know what I mean?
Oh God, big corn.
Yeah, that's a story for another time.
Corn and soy.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's a different podcast. We're somebody needs to take that on, but these two dumb bitches, we are not those people.
We're good. So, tax cuts. His buddy Mellon recommended that Congress cut income tax rates and the corporate excess profits tax to be abolished. So that meant if a corporation made a whole lot of money, they were no longer taxed on that extra amount.
Right, because if you have a whole lot of money, why? Then you should obviously pay less.
I don't understand. So that happens. The corporate tax, excess profits tax is abolished. Between 1922 and 1925, Mellon's tax policies actually somehow helped the economy some. It would just go back and forth. I mean, we are talking the 1920s now. We know what's going to happen. It's coming, but so we got it's just not stable yet.
Just like in advance of the of the big tech bust.
Right.
You can tell if you're in the know and you have enough information, you can kind of juice the stats a little bit.
Right.
In order to make it fall your favor. And then it's just a matter of timing.
Right, exactly.
And so this is where we are, right?
Right, yes.
Same thing.
And then we have some other things happening here. I mean, there's new technologies. We got electricity is way more common, motorized vehicles. They're in mass production. Mm-hmm. So we need highway construction. We need more rubber. We need more steel. We need more hotels for the people who are traveling in their vehicles. Mm-hmm. Harding signed the Federal Highway Act in 1921. Oof. In 1921 to 1923, the federal government spent $162 million on the highway system, which would equivalent in 1923 to $2.9 billion. They also started the licensing of radio frequencies, but they didn't actually. He started promoting that. It didn't regulate until 1927. He also proposed to promote aviation, but it didn't pass until 26, and that focused on safety matters, like inspections of planes and licensing of pilots. Because again, planes are really,
these are all good things.
They're all good things. So, like I said, he didn't start on the wrong side.
Right. Maybe they're going a little bit faster and maybe they're not looking quite as closely.
Right, but things are changing so fast.
But there is something.
Yeah.
And these are the things that all right, what do you do to make a better life for the people of your nation.
Right. You got more cars. Well, you got to put more highways and
Right.
roads down. If you're
Safe roads.
If you're going, we have radio. So, well, maybe we should license the call letters so we don't have a problem. And obviously planes,
Airfare,
yeah, I mean,
air travel.
You want to make sure that the planes are safe, and you want to make sure that people who fly them have a license. So all of these are good things.
And that we're all on the same page when we're in the air, because, well, what happens when we aren't?
Yeah, things go bad, as we know. Businesses, however, he believed government should aid businesses as much as possible. He did not trust organized labor, thought that they conspired against businesses, which we all know is a farce, because the only thing the unions are trying to do is make sure the businesses don't screw them. It's like you're both sitting at a table with your lawyers. You are coming to an agreement.
Unions are there for an educated and well-paid populace.
Right.
And you know what? And they tend to develop in areas where you want an educated and well-paid populace.
Exactly.
Because you don't want people that are barely showing up to be the ones that put your planes in the sky.
Exactly.
Or test your food.
Right.
Or build your cars.
Right.
Or pave your roads.
You want them to be educated enough to do it, or make sure they get paid properly and are trained properly. All sorts of crazy things.
You want folks to show up and be like, all right, well, I have an important job to do that is important to the people that will benefit from this. And
So now, like I said, it's going up and down while he's there. In 1922, there's widespread strikes. April of 22, we have a 500,000 person coal miners strike over wage cuts. Apparently, the people who were running they were like, oh, we're in downtime, so we're going to cut your wages. Harding proposed to Congress that they create a commission to look into the grievances of the pay if they would go back to work. And so the union members of the coal mining industry ended up going back to work. Was it ever fixed? Not really.
Janet, I have a quick question.
Okay.
Just based on my story and the fact that we have somehow managed to be in the same timeline again.
I know.
Have they ever considered going and talking to a ghost about it?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, even today, honestly, like, I would take a Ouija board. I would just be like...
July 1st, 1922, $400,000 railroad workers went on strike as well. They ended up doing an injunction to end the strike. 1922, the 8-hour workday was pretty common, but for some reason steel mills still were doing a 12-hour workday with 7 days a week. They were going back and forth trying to do this, and then when the public realized what was going on, they were like, why are you still doing it? Why? And so they ended up going down to 8 hours a day. He was also on civil rights and immigration. Harding's first address to Congress was called for passage of the anti-lynching legislation.
Oh.
He also asked the cabinet officers to place black people in their departments.
Well, you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
He was still waiting to... he was still willing to let the literacy test still exist in order to vote for black and white people. We already know how that's going to work, you know? Obviously, more white people will still be able to vote. The anti-lynching bill passed the House in January of 1922. However, when it reached the Senate in November of 22, Southern Democrats filibustered it and the bill was defeated. Hardin signed the Per Centum Act of 1921, which restricted immigration because the public was concerned, propaganda, with them being socialists or communists. Again, propaganda. They did not restrict, however, anybody coming from Ireland or Germany.
Oh, right. Well, because
they're white.
they're the good people. They're the ones we want. Yeah.
But they restricted Italians. But, there was this whole guy that, the Italians hung in the middle of the streets with his...
Mussolini.
Yeah, Mussolini. So they weren't really into Italians, but they also would not let Eastern European Jewish people in either. Mm-hmm. But he ended up allowing 1,000 deportable immigrants to remain. Harding did appoint 4 justices of the Supreme Court, which is very typical. Every time you get a new president, he appointed some other people. I couldn't read anything that was bad or good about him. Mm-hmm. Just appointed. And this is where I get to my last page of this one. Oh,
that's
my gosh.
Okay.
So,
and don't
I know.
Feel like you're making a rush. I know that we've got a lot,
yeah.
but this is a good story. So.
Right. So he was getting some political setbacks. Republicans, they all followed through with their promises. However, the electorals did not like the fact that they ended up cutting the taxes for the well-off.
Right.
They did not. Yeah. Why? Why are you doing that? The economy was not returning to normal. Unemployment was still at 11%. Mm-hmm. The Labor Party was angry about the lack of the outcome of any of the strikes. 1922, the midterm elections, Republicans ended up losing seats because they had both houses. They ended up losing seats in both houses, but they still never lost their majority. And then by March of 1923, the economy started to slightly recover. Mm-hmm. And that is where I'm going to leave it. Because
if you let the people they talk about bread and circuses. And, if you give people a little bit of entertainment and, just enough to be able to get by, honestly, for the most of the time, you can skate by.
Yes.
But when people... finally start to get hungry and you push that bridge too far, then that is when you get people that are like, why the F are we support you? Right. Why are we even doing this anymore? Right,
yeah.
And so, yeah.
So that's my story for today. Yes. And I still have a part 4. We are almost to the... I got to a very good spot. And next week we will all find out about all the things that the American public did not know that was going on behind the scenes while Warren G. Harding, who's supposedly the worst president in the U.S. But concerning the things I've read, I'm like, but was he?
At the time?
At the time. Now, there are some scholars who've gone back and, looked at a lot of stuff. They're kind of like, okay, he really wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see. We'll see. So, that's my story.
I have deliberately made sure that I have not Googled Warren G. Harding at all for a month.
I'm sorry.
Even if I see it come up in a history podcast that I listen to, I'm like, no.
You're just like, la 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 la.
I'm gonna let Janet tell me.
So I think this is where we need to take a break.
We take a break. I am going to take Janet out back, congratulate her on finally becoming president, and then I am going to ask her to let the tabby drowse by the fire log until we have the wisdom that we need in these days. And we will be back briefly with What's Nice.
We'll be back with What's Nice.
Hey, Muddy Buddies. Thank you. Tracey here. We are asking you this week, not for you to go and join our Patreon or our Buy Me a Coffee, although those are good things to do, but really what will help us to kind of grow our audience and move to the next level is just additional listenership. So please tell 3 friends this week about the podcast. And if you aren't already subscribed to us on a platform, then go ahead. And if you aren't already subscribed to us on a platform that you don't use, still, just go ahead. Help us bump the numbers. We love you. We like getting muddy with you. We're going to keep doing this as long as you all keep listening. And we really appreciate you. But like I said, the biggest thing that we can ask for right now is just for you to help us increase our listenership. And we'll get back to what's nice.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to what's nice.
So I think you get to start with what's nice this
I do,
week.
And since Pearl bounced around a whole lot
Yeah, she did.
during her life, I went to Mound City, Illinois.
Mound City.
And there is, if you go to wallmanor.com,
Okay.
there is a hotel that is from the early years of the 21st century, situated on a top of what is rumored to be the remains of an ancient Native American temple mound.
Oh.
So just go stay at that hotel. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Right? Echoing back to the Mississippian era, which
Yes.
if you have ever been to Cahokia Mounds, then you know that you can learn a whole lot about that. It was about 1,000 years ago. Today they do still have this big, almost palatial, all of these columns.
Oh my gosh,
stuff,
that's a
like
big
this
house.
big, gorgeous house that is on that property.
And clearly not haunted.
Clearly not haunted. Built by the Chicago architect named S.B. Prindle.
Okay.
And so it was built in 1910 for a judge in Chicago, the Honorable Judge Warner, not to be confused with Judge Wapner. So there's this whole huge property that is in the Civil War era town of Mound City, and it has been under the stewardship of the same family for like 80 odd years,
Wow.
something like that. And so, yes. So just absolutely beautiful. It does look like you are kind of right there in the river valley that we talked about in, oh gosh, I don't remember the episode, but the Soda Pop Festival.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So if you're right there in that Ohio River Valley,
Oh, wow.
then it is pretty close to there, and you can look out over the river. And I mean, honestly, a lot of my what's nices these days have just been like, ooh, where do I want to go? Instead?
Right. Exactly.
So
well, that looks
lovely. And I'm looking at, they do offer tours of Wall Manor.
Nice.
$5 per person.
Oh, that's not bad
so
at
if
all.
you can swing it,
Yeah.
you know. Age 10 or older, all children must be supervised.
Of course.
Which should be the rule all the time. Tourists must stay together, the house is locked, and then, yeah, they pretty much, the only way to see the house,
is with the tour.
I guess, the full part of the house is to do that. And, yeah, so it's Mound City, Illinois, the Ohio River, a public access boat ramp, and a 5-mile-long scenic roadway.
Oh, nice.
So if you're a person that wants to go to hike, unless it's a little muddy...
Hi, Jim.
Listen.
I know. Little Muddy Jim.
Little Muddy Jim. Big Muddy Jim. But yeah, there is a path that goes kind of along the top of the river levee, and then you can kind of go and just see the scenic overlooks, and then apparently go into your not muddy room. And unless a ghost bothers you, you'll be able to go and spend a pleasant night there.
Oh,
and so,
goodness.
yeah, I spent a whole lot of time on my story today.
Yes.
And a whole lot of time at work today. And so my what's nice is a little bit short, but here it is. And again, I mean, I'd go there.
Yeah. No, it looks
So,
great.
Wall, W-A-L-L, Manor, MANOR.com.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. Okay. You ready for my what's nice?
I am.
Tracy's gonna get really excited when I tell her this. We're gonna go back to Columbus because he likes Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
There is a it's a company, kind of, sort of. It was founded by Bethia Wolf and Andy Dehus. They are the founders of the Columbus Food Adventures.
Okay. I love a food tour. You know I do.
So it was founded, they ended up founding the Columbus Food Adventures to share the incredible stories behind Columbus's diverse food scene. From gourmet institutions like the Refectory and Pistacia Vera to hidden gems like taco trucks and mom and pop eateries, our city has so much to offer. Our passion began with websites like TacoTruckColumbus.com, AltEatsColumbus.com, and HungryWolf.com, where we explored and reviewed local restaurants. In 2010, we launched the Columbus Food Adventures, starting with 3 tours inspired by our discoveries. Today, we offer 11 unique tour experiences, foodie scavenger hunts, and custom tours.
Foodie scavenger hunts?
Yes. I'm trying to plant something in Tracey's ear so she can tell. What is her name? Who listens to this? I think Tracey needs to have a conversation. Whether you're a lifelong Columbus resident or a visitor eager to taste the best of the city has to offer, we hope our tours inspire you to appreciate the richness and diversity of our local food scene as much as we do. Now, let me tell you about the tours.
Okay.
So we got 11 tours. You get to meet your event host. You dine at multiple restaurants, kind of stuff like that. Let's see here.
And this is all in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
So, friend of the pod, Megan, has a friend that lives up there. And honestly, the more I hear about Columbus, the more that I'm just like, why have I never been there?
Columbus is a neat city.
Have you?
Yes,
You've been?
I've been a couple of times.
Okay.
Yes. So we got, I'll give you a hint of some of the food tours. We have the Short North tour. It's designed to show off the best of Columbus.
Okay.
Short North has to offer, it's $76. The tours run on Fridays and Saturdays at 11 a.m. We have the Grandview Avenue tour, which is, places on Grandview Avenue. We have the Dublin food tour, where we experience how Dublin has become one of the most interesting and delicious destinations in central Ohio. We have the Alts Eat tour, travel the world without leaving Columbus. So an international food tour. They have a place, this is where I was going to go, but then I'm like, no, the food tour sounds more interesting. They have a place called German Village. Okay. And so they do a German Village tour. Old Worthington tour, another area, Italian Village Pizza tour.
Janet, you and I have already been to a place called the Italian Village in Chicago, which is lovely. Shout out.
And of course, we have a taco truck tour, a summer cheer tour, and a holiday cheer tour. So, yeah, they have different ones for different areas and different times of the year. So, they run, it looks like the most expensive one is like $89. One of the cheaper ones is $62. It's not bad for what it is at all.
And frankly, yes. I mean, most of the times that I have gone on a food tour, I've found that the cost is always worth it, because my big problem, I don't know about you, Janet, but I know that when I go to a new city or a city where I haven't been or where I've only been once or twice,
right,
my big problem is once I know where I'm going to lay my head, the next thing I want to know is, like, what am I eating?
Right, always.
And so if there is a food tour and I get the chance to do something where I have, like, little bites from a few different places, Otherwise, it's like, all right, well, if I'm in Kansas City for 36 hours, then I get like 3 meals.
Right.
4 meals.
And
like,
the food tour is a way to experience more. Yeah.
So I can eat all of the things, which is really what, like, my baseline is I want to eat all of the things all of the time. And it might just be that we're piggy Midwestern girls. But I love a food tour, and I love that we frequently showcase those on What's Nice.
Yeah, so and they also, of course, do corporate outings as well. Those range anywhere in groups between 8 people to 75 people.
Holy moly, that's a big spread.
Yeah, so it looks very fun. Starting for $750 for your group of 8, you can do a 3-hour tour.
Nice.
3-hour tour. Where's that tour?
And then you just spend like 5 years on an island eating all of the good food. Oh.
While the professor makes another radio out of coconut. So anyway, but that's my What's Nice.
Oh, well, that's a What's Nice.
Yeah.
And like, we have had a couple of good stories that we managed to bring to you on a rainy night.
Yes.
in St. Louis. And man, whatever it is that you're doing and wherever it is that you're going, we really hope that whatever you're having for dinner tonight, that you are enjoying it and that you are enjoying the podcast and that you'll come back and see us.
Right.
And hear us again.
There's one more thing that we need to remind you.
So no matter what you do, no matter what you eat, no matter whether you like it or whether you don't, no matter whether you're in Ohio or you're in Mound City, Illinois, if you're running for president, if you are channeling a spiritual ghost that's helping you write books even though you barely know how to pass 3rd grade, the one thing that you could do and should do is to remain Midwest nice.
Stay Midwest nice.